Hi, I'm Allison, and today we've got Michelle Benoit with us, a pelvic floor physical therapist and postpartum specialist from Charlotte, and she's going to walk us through some really great practices for Diastasis Recti. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for asking me to be here.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot the last time. We did. But now we get to do the fun stuff. The actual moving.
It's exciting.
Moving and feeling our bodies, right?
Yes.
So we had talked, and I kind of outlined to you, I usually try and stick with a 3-step approach.
Yeah.
Because then, we kind of know where we're going in, and we know where we are heading in the whole process, right? And so the first step 1, is to connect to our bodies, which is the hardest step, I think, of all of them.
Yeah, it totally is.
Yeah. So what we're talking about with connecting to our body is really just having our brain be able to feel what's going on inside of our body. Mm-hmm. And the reason I think that is so hard for us is just because we live in such like a busy outside of ourselves type of world.
Right.
And so we don't really feel things. We don't notice our breath. We don't feel when we're holding on to tension or where we might be holding on to tension. Yeah. So connection breath is feeling your breath move through your body. Right? Awesome. And so with my clients, we usually do this in a whole variety of positions because we can sometimes feel things differently just depending on the position we're in. Yeah. So like you and I, we're in sitting. Yeah. And so really the connection breath in sitting is simply feeling your breath as you inhale and exhale. And so what happens in the body with inhalation is your diaphragm presses down and it flattens, and along with that it kind of creates this domino effect inside where now your abdominal wall organ or your abdominal organs are pushing down, and at the very bottom your pelvic floor also kind of lengthens and stretches. So with inhalation we have this downward movement of the diaphragm, your abdominal wall expands just slightly, and your pelvic floor at the bottom expands just slightly. So sometimes too I'll ask my clients just to set one hand on their rib cage and kind of one hand on their belly. And same thing. It's just your normal breath that you take. You don't have to make a big inhale, it doesn't have to be a large exhale, and just kind of feel what you're feeling. So what you may notice is that as you inhale, your rib cage expands a little bit. Mm-hmm. You might notice that your belly kind of expands and pushes into your hands. Down in the pelvis, or the pelvic floor, you might feel that your perineum, or kind of that area of skin down at the bottom of your body, kind of expands and pushes into the floor. And then when you exhale, maybe it recoils a little bit. Maybe you kind of feel it between your ischial tuberosities, or those bones in your butt cheeks, that when you inhale, they expand apart just a little bit. And then when you exhale, they kind of recoil together just a little. Okay? And don't be too worried if you're thinking, I can't feel any of this. Right. It's really a practice. Right. To just really allow yourself to come inside of your body and feel movement. Right. Right. Yeah. So this is why it's one of the most important pieces to start with, is that if we can't feel it, it's kind of hard to move it voluntarily afterwards. Yeah. So some of the other positions, sometimes a lot of people lay down. Okay. So lying down, same thing. If you have one hand up on your rib cage and maybe one hand on your belly.
And we're just taking deep breaths.
Yeah, you're just kind of breathing in and out. And you might notice now that you're lying down, that your rib cage actually expands towards the back as well. Yeah. Right? Because our ribs attach onto our thoracic spine. So you're going to feel that movement there. And you might notice that same expansion through your belly. Okay? And then maybe one other position that is good to get in is sometimes even in side lying. So you just kind of get comfortable. In here, same thing, you'll be able to feel your rib cage as it expands into the ground, and then you can feel your belly.
So we'll just turn it so you can see. So you've got your hand kind of up here, right?
Yeah. Sometimes in side lying too, you can feel some of the expansion of your breath down towards your tailbone. So if you just kind of take your attention down to your tailbone, as you breathe in, you might feel some expansion there. And then as you exhale, you might feel that kind of recoil. So I found that for some clients sideline, you can really feel the difference between like at your pubic bone or your tailbone, you know. And so each different position sometimes affords you just a little bit different of a feeling.
Right.
So this is something that whether you are just a couple of days postpartum or you had your last baby 10 years ago, kind of if you haven't done this work yet, it's really important work to do. So it's not the step to skip.
Right. And what would you say to somebody who's still struggling to connect? Just spend more time with it?
Practice, yes. Practice. Yeah, consistent practice, I would say for 5 to 10 minutes every day. The visualization, the imagery definitely helps as well. Imagining kind of the movement that you're looking to feel, you know, and so what we're looking to feel, right? Inhalation is a lot of expansion. It's rib cage expansion, it's abdominal wall expansion, and it's pelvic floor expansion. Right. And then the exhale being the recoil back from that expansion.
How about for moms who like feel like their organs have just moved around, like things are feeling kind of void? Are we just trying to notice this now? Right? And notice what it feels like, even if it feels a little funky.
Exactly.
A couple weeks postpartum.
Yep. We're just trying to feel. Just trying to allow your brain to notice the different areas through kind of this core canister.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So a transition from just feeling what you feel to kind of getting that deep core, right? So the transverse abdominis muscle and the pelvic floor muscles, to getting them to kind of engage and start being active is what we usually refer to as the graded connection breath. Okay. And so kind of the same thing where I'm going to inhale and just feel my belly expand. And then as I exhale, I'm going to actively pull my belly in towards my spine. So
with your muscles or with your hands?
With your muscles.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just kind of put this here as more of a cue. Yeah. So inhale and I expand. And as I exhale, I'm going to ask my muscles, can I pull my lower belly or the belly button in towards my spine, feeling some tension gathering down there. Okay. And then on the inhale portion, I'm gonna release that. I'm gonna let that go. And this can be gentle, right? Because we're really just trying to kind of pair up the two things now. We're trying to pair up the breath and a little bit of active muscle engagement. Okay. So it doesn't have to be the strongest contraction ever, but just a little bit. Just say, hey, muscles, can you start doing that? Can you pull that in? And again, might be hard for you in sitting. So you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna try it in those different positions. Maybe you go ahead and lie down on your back. Okay. Maybe, so for some people, that is easier. I'll kind of turn this way too. And just watch where my hands are here. But same thing. Inhale, expand, exhale. Pull that belly in.
Yeah, I really notice lying down, you can kind of feel that in a different way.
Yeah.
Yep. And the transverse abdominis, that kind of connects all the way up through
it does.
Here. So if we're feeling that on the edges here, you're also still connecting in there?
It does, yeah. So it connects all the way down from the pubic bone, and it comes all the way up, and it actually connects in with the connective tissue of your diaphragm. So we have a lower, a middle, and then an upper portion of the transverse abdominis. And what happens is when we kind of do those gentler contractions, maybe somewhere between like 5 and 20% of what we can maximally do, we can stick with isolating some of that transverse abdominis. When we ask it to work a little bit more than that, you're also going to feel those internal and external obliques kick in. So just something interesting to know. But if you don't feel it when you're lying on your back, again, for some of my clients, if we just turn them over and we go onto their side, this position makes sense.
Yeah.
For their body. That's kind of their brain can kind of figure that out. So wherever it clicks the best or the easiest for you, that's where you can start.
Right.
You know?
Awesome.
Yeah. So that is, and the same thing really goes for those pelvic floor muscles too.
Right.
Same thing where, you know, maybe we start up sitting again. And now we can really kind of feel we're centered over those ischial tuberosities. On inhale, kind of feel the perineum expand.
Mm-hmm.
And then on exhale, we're going to think of our pelvic floor here like an elevator, right? And so as we exhale, we're going to ask that elevator to start coming up into the building that is the bony pelvis.
And that's our exhale.
Yeah. And then as we inhale again, we'll release that and let the elevator come back down to the floor. So in this graded connection breath for pelvic floor, we're inhaling and you're just feeling expansion. As you exhale, you're gonna ask your pelvic floor elevator to kind of pull up, or what some people call a Kegel.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the following inhale, you're gonna release it. And let that elevator come back down, let that pelvic floor rest down again. Feel that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes when I've taught this in yoga too, in our original Diastasis Recti, I'll have people sit on like a bolster so you can quite literally like feel that a little more. Yep. Some people can't always feel that like right there on the floor, but sometimes that's helped me in the past get connected to those muscles.
Yeah, and if you don't have a bolster, you can just take a bath towel, right? You can roll it up. Mm-hmm. Yep, and you just sit on it lengthwise.
Like a horse.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
perfect.
But it just, it improves that tactile. And, you know, you can feel it better. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the basis of the connection piece. And while it sounds like, really? Is that all it is?
Right.
Again, sometimes it can be the hardest piece.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes, you might not get it the first 1 or 2 days that you practice it.
Yeah.
It might be a week or 2 weeks of just this practice and feeling your body.
And it takes a lot of coordination, because I was just trying to do it while you were talking and while I was listening and realizing I was doing it completely wrong. So it's a lot of coordination and a lot of
It really
focus. It takes a lot. So I can imagine, you know, when we're trying to do this at home with kids and dogs and family running around, it's really about also taking that time for yourself to just connect in and to do that, feel it.
Yeah, quiet is best if you can. Try not to have this be the time that you're doing it in the car at the stoplights or, you know, things like that, because really the idea is having that mindful awareness of your body, what it's doing and how it's moving. That's, you know, that's really the main goal of this.
Right, and so when we're thinking about that pelvic floor, we're releasing, relaxing on the inhale.
Right.
And contraction on the exhale.
Exactly.
So that's sort of our key.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Step 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So now we're all connected.
Okay.
And so now what we're going to do is we're going to try and learn to control the TA.
Yep.
We'll kind of primarily talk TA.
Yeah.
But really anything that we're talking, like the TA, we can also kind of piggyback the pelvic floor with that as well. So
TA being transverse abdominals, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So a few exercises that I like, spinal balance. So you're a yoga instructor, right?
Yeah.
So there are a whole bunch of progressions to spinal balance. So we'll start in tabletop.
Okay.
And this is almost, you know, tabletop even is one of those positions where you can practice that connection breath as well.
Yeah.
So while you're here and while you have kind of your flat back, see if you can just let your belly go. Kind of like just let it hang, right? And then on inhale, feel it expand a little bit. And then on exhale, you might notice that it draws up just a little. Or you might feel some tension down. Yeah, it's got to work a little, right? Yeah. So it's working to really hold up all of our organs that gravity is now pushing down, right? So Now we can, if we wanted to advance onto like the graded connection breath, where we ask this transverse abdominis to start kicking in a little, we'll do the same thing. Inhale and feel your belly fill. As you exhale, lift your lower belly, drawing it up towards your spine. All right, and then you inhale and release. Exhale, draw up. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And you see, Kate's doing it perfect, right? She's not rolling in that pelvis.
Yeah, maybe we can show her on sideways. So what are we looking for here?
So just how she's starting, with this very neutral, kind of flat back. Initially, she's just gonna kind of let go of her belly. Yep. And it's gonna hang out. As she inhales, it's gonna fill slightly. And as she exhales, she's gonna pull her belly from my hand and lift it up. Then she's gonna inhale and release that. And then she'll exhale and lift that belly. Yep. We don't have her kind of using a tilt of the pelvis to get that engaged. And we also don't have her using kind of the rib cage, the rounding of the rib cage to get movement here. So that's really what we're looking for. Staying neutral here, just that lower belly, that's expanding and then lifting.
Yeah, I feel that working.
And so that's usually where we'll start. We'll just start with the bracing.
Yeah.
And then maybe we'll add a hold time on.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll take it here.
Okay.
And we might exhale, engage, and then keep it engaged.
And while you breath.
You can do either, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is where we can start manipulating a little bit what we do with our breath while you have a muscle engaged. So from here, you're getting pretty good. You can hold it and you can talk, or you can hold it and you can breathe. But then you want a little more challenge, right? We want to be able to say, okay, I want to control here, but I'm going to start moving and taking away a base of support. Inhale, release, exhale, brace, and then take your base of support away, return, and release. So that's kind of some of that control.
Right.
A few different steps there, right? We're exhaling and bracing. We're taking our base of support away while we maintain our brace. We're bringing that back down. And then we're releasing our brace.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's that little coordination there.
I sort of noticed that marriage of the connection and sort of the feeling of it, because when you take it away, it really engages a lot of other muscles there. So we're still in connect, even though we're sort of moving a little bit here too.
Right. And just going for more progression.
Right.
Usually the next one I'll have my clients do is to start with one leg extended with your toes still on the ground.
Okay.
Everything else stays the same. Same coordination here. So you're gonna brace in your belly. Now you're gonna take your leg and you're gonna pick up your leg. And then you're gonna inhale and return it down. And then you're gonna release your belly. So of course, our leg is heavier than our arm, right? So it's more work. And you've also taken away kind of one of the major bases of support there. And then
how many are we doing? Like if somebody's doing this practice at home, how many of each side? What should we look at?
I would do 5 to 10 of each side.
Okay.
Yep. And what I would do is I wouldn't necessarily, I would start with just the bracing.
Okay.
The bracing and holding, maybe you hold it for 5 seconds, 10 repetitions or so. And when that gets easy, then you ditch that and you move on to raising an arm.
Got it.
Right? So you start with the foundation, kind of the easier thing. Once you can handle that easy thing pretty well, let's get rid of it and let's replace it with something that's a little bit more demanding.
Awesome.
So that you don't end up with 45 minutes where 30 of it is kind of pretty simple.
Yeah.
But you actually are kind of training yourself at the level that you're at.
Perfect.
And then just kind of with the final of spinal balance, when you kind of work through all of those levels is the actual full spinal balance, right?
Yeah.
So everything always starts the same. Inhale, expand, exhale, brace, and now full spinal balance is you're taking one arm, opposite leg, and now you only have one hand, one knee supporting you, and inhale back. Right, and then it's kind of, you can go ahead and you can switch sides. And come back, right? Or you can keep it the same side. Do your 5 reps all the same, and then go ahead and switch to the other side, for example. So,
and for yogis who are used to kind of doing this in their practice, like that crunching, does that go when we're hitting challenge, or would that be something that you could load on at some point?
Yep, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Awesome.
So I like to use spinal balance.
Yeah.
And I like to use another progression. It's a supine, so on your back progression, called dead bug.
Okay.
So for some, if you don't feel comfortable in that hands and knees, you know, if you don't feel that you have kind of the strength through that connective tissue to be against gravity, maybe starting on your back is better.
Awesome.
So we'll kind of go through that. So we're going to be on our back with our knees and our feet kind of in line with our hips here. And the initial setup for this is just like in quadruped, where you kind of have your neutral spine. You kind of want the same thing here, meaning we don't want a like real big arch in our back. So just kind of bring that back until you're kind of flat with the ground, okay? And then your setup here is going to be to, as you exhale, you're going to brace your lower belly.
Okay.
Okay, kind of find that tension. And then we can do it exactly the same way we just talked about in quadruped. Hold the tension. Maybe you hold it there for 5 seconds and then release. And that's where you're starting.
Okay.
Just kind of being able to maintain the tension. Then what we can do is you brace. And now we go and we start moving our legs. So you kind of keep your brace, keep your belly with tension, and then you just alternate marching your legs.
And breathing is just standard here, but we're still holding that engagement.
Exactly.
Is that right?
Okay. Exactly. And it may be the easiest for you to pair your march with your exhale, because it'll give you just a little bit more support in your midline. We can even, if you want to keep your hands up to the ceiling, as we're thinking about kind of eventual, like having a full dead bug. And so, brace. And then maybe you want a little more challenge. So you're going to take your leg and you're going to straighten it out. So now your leg is this long lever that really your core canister just kind of has to create some stiffness in the middle to allow your leg to kind of hang out there. And then exhale, bring it back. Okay. We can start adding our arms in. So maybe you exhale, you start taking that right leg out, but you bring your left arm back at the same time. And then we inhale back. Then we can go and switch. Brace, left leg, right arm. Inhale back. So same thing here, just like in the, right? Just like in spinal balance, we're in a different position, and maybe we do 5 repetitions of each combination. Right. When that stuff gets pretty easy of having both feet on the ground, now we're going to start working up into kind of the starting position for a full dead bug. Okay. And I like to call these ones climbing to 90-90. Okay. So always start that same way, right? We've got our low back is kind of flush with the floor. We brace in our lower belly. Okay. Now we're going to kind of maintain that brace. We've created stiffness here in the middle. So we're going to hold this, and then we're going to take that right leg and we're going to bring it up to a 90-90 position. And now we're going to do the real tricky thing. We're going to keep the right one up, but we're also going to lift up the left.
And so when we're saying 90-90, we mean 90 degree in the knee, 90 in the ankle?
90 in the hip and 90.
90 in the hip, 90 in the knee. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay. So you're still going to keep that tension in your belly, and here you may want to utilize the exhale as you lift up your left leg as well. Okay. So that is pretty challenging on that core canister.
Mm-hmm.
So I just call march to 90-90. So coming up, up, and then down, down as one of the progressions, really. So really just being, right? It's kind of being able to get here and to return, kind of controlling that transverse brace.
Right.
Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One thing I notice in myself that I can imagine some clients might find is like a tendency to want to hold my breath. Like I'm bracing, so therefore I'm not breathing.
Yeah.
And that's something like in yoga we talk a lot about, like how could we connect this to our breath? So if I were going to brace, how am I breathing here when I come up to march to 90-90?
So once you kind of get your initial brace, what I do is with each leg movement, I'm going to exhale.
Okay.
On the return, often I will inhale on the return.
Okay.
But you can do whichever you feel is the most effective for you to keep control of this middle here.
Got it.
Okay.
So I'm going to inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, other foot up.
Yeah.
And then take my inhale to drop it down.
Yep.
That's a lot to think about.
It is a lot. It absolutely is, right? And so while we were talking connection at the beginning, you can see there's really like connection through certainly like these retraining steps, which are the connection and the controlling piece. It's a lot of motor planning and in getting your brain to activate your muscles when you want them to and things like that. So we really consider this retraining.
Right.
And then the challenge stuff is more training.
Right.
Okay.
And our transverse abdominals, these are what we're talking about when we think about like women who want to belly bind or wear a band or something. These are your natural binders, right?
Exactly.
So we're kind of engaging that. So we'd probably not want to have a binder on.
Yes, I would not.
This.
Right.
Okay.
I would not wear your binder during your actual retraining.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also just because if we have a binder on, you have some tactile, meaning like sensory on your skin that's also talking to your brain at the same time. So we want to kind of get rid of that and have our brain and our muscles talking to each other, not the actual cloth of your binder.
Awesome.
Yep. And so what we'll do is we'll just kind of demo here. So a full dead bug, you're actually going to start where we ended in that, or kind of the middle, right? So a dead bug looks like this. We start here. And then what we do is on the exhale is the opposites. Yeah. And then we'll inhale to the middle. And we'll exhale. And we'll inhale to the middle. Okay, so that's kind of your full progression there. Inhale back. And exhale down. And inhale back. Okay.
I feel it.
Yeah. That's when you know, right? When you're there, you're like, I'm ready for training.
Yeah.
So also during this phase is when I like to have my clients start working on bracing through their abdominal wall with some of their day-to-day activities. Okay. So things like lifting their baby or setting the baby back into the crib or the bassinet. Right. Pushing or pulling or carrying groceries. So if these are our babies in front of us, what we would do is we're going to lift our baby. So we would brace with our belly and kind of hold that brace, hold that tension. We're going to lift our babe down as we bring the babe here to our center. Then we can kind of release that abdominal wall a little bit. So what we're doing is we're teaching our brain that when I do something that's going to require some stiffness here, it's going to bring pressure here, I want my abdominal wall to kind of kick in just before I do that thing.
Right.
And so same thing with laying the baby back down, maybe, right? So we would brace, and then we're going to go ahead and move, set the baby down, and then we would release in our belly there.
Right.
So it's both ends of it, right? It's the brace, perform the activity, and then release when you're kind of through the activity. So that's what we'll work on a lot here too, just functional stuff.
Yeah, and we want control of that band so that, you know, if we sort of belly bind, in some ways we're not learning how to have that on off. It's like a pedal, like do we engage here to pick up, or if the band is just doing all that work for us, we sometimes forget how to engage in this.
And it's really important to do this kind of ongoing for a little bit, right? Because we're going to need different amounts of activity from the TA, from our pelvic floor, depending on what the load is.
Right.
So this happens a lot with moms who have a newborn, and then maybe they have a toddler at home too. Right. So they can, it works pretty effectively for the 10-pound newborn, but then they're still feeling like, I can't, I just don't have the strength to lift like my 3 or 4-year-old up. Right. It's a heavier load. It's a different activity, right? Yeah. And so that's where we get into the challenging piece of things. Let's go. So
step 3,
challenge, right? And the abdominal wall, especially transverse abdominis, all of them, they are skeletal muscles. And if we want to strengthen our skeletal muscles, and if we want to strengthen all our connective tissue, we have to progressively overload. That is basic principle of strengthening, which means that we continue to kind of up the ante on the demand that we're placing. Right. So let's just use the dead bug. Right. So we just kind of went through that, and you can use one dumbbell. And what we'll do, and we'll kind of both go this way so that they can see. But what you can do is you hold your dumbbell, both hands kind of up like, perfect. And I'll hold one in each hand, and we'll just kind of demonstrate. So adding a challenge, or kind of in this challenge phase, you're going to see that there are going to be some external resistance that we're using, right? So we've got dumbbells, or we've got kettlebells, or we've got bands. We might perform more repetitions of something. We might perform more sets. We might hold things for longer. We might do it faster. So those are kind of all the variables that we are looking at to challenge our body. So let's go back into our dead bug kind of starting position, right? Both of our legs are up. So in your case, you have one dumbbell. So what you can do is you can drop your arms back and do pick a leg, right? So maybe you get that right leg out and both arms go back because you've got the one dumbbell. And then you bring them back up, right? So your arms are going to go back with each leg. And that's totally fine. I have 2 dumbbells. So I'm just going to kind of do what we were demoing before. But now I have a weight in my hand. It changes the demand on that core canister. And just like we were doing before, as we lengthen out, we're going to kind of pair that with our exhale. We're going to inhale back to the middle. And then inhale back to the middle. So that would be an example of a challenge.
Yeah, and what are we looking for? Like, how do we know if we've over-challenged?
If you've over-challenged, what you're going to see is, you may see this. Let me see. You might see this happening.
So I see that your lower back is now off your mat. This is sort of just overstretched there.
Okay. My rib cage is kind of flared up. And even my knee and my hip is now flexed. Okay. So that's often what we'll see. You may see, if you have some of that weakness in this linea alba, you may see the cone, right, kind of through the midline, or the dome where your belly expands versus being able to draw in and keep the stiffness that way.
Okay, so we're looking to be able to really keep this fully engaged, and as soon as we sort of feel that lifting, or we're losing control of that lower back, or even pain, I would imagine, especially in your shoulders or your lower back.
Pain anywhere is kind of always a sign that your body is kind of overloaded for what you're trying to do with it. Definitely.
But you could even, I know in like I used to play water polo in high school. We do water weights or weights around our ankles. Could you do add ankle weights or arm weights, those sorts of things?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. You can even, let me show you with a band. So maybe you notice that when you bring your arms back, your rib cage flares, or you kind of get more of a dome, and so that's just too much for right now.
Okay.
So what you could do is if you grab a resistance band, right? So maybe you're not going to bring your arms back over your head. You're going to keep them here, and maybe we're just going to pull the band.
Nice. Okay.
Okay. And then we can still do our legs. If we can handle that.
Consistency holding that.
Yeah, just consistently holding that.
Okay.
On the flip side, sometimes when we start moving our legs, that's when we notice this is overloaded.
Okay.
So maybe we just keep our legs here, but we do our arms.
Right.
Right?
Awesome.
Arms don't weigh as much.
Yep.
Usually not quite as long, right?
Perfect.
So those would just be two accommodations you could make.
Awesome.
Yeah, if you happen to notice that that's happening to you.
Great. And the whole myth used to be no planks, no crunches.
Yeah.
So
no
now we're in
crunches.
challenge zone. How do we do planks and crunches in a way that's Diastasis Recti safe?
Okay.
If we're ready to challenge to that level.
Yes.
We've got our connect and control down.
So one thing about a plank is not every plank has to be done horizontally on the ground. So you can absolutely start your plank higher up, and part of your progression for challenging yourself would be to go from a more vertical stance to more horizontal, right? So maybe you start your plank and you're planking up against a wall. But you're still utilizing, okay, I'm in my plank, I'm up against the wall, I'm still drawing in here, and I'm gonna keep that brace.
Okay.
And from the wall, what I usually recommend to clients is, especially if you have stairs in your house, this is really easy. You have the whole staircase to work down. So you would pick, maybe you start 6 or 7 stairs up, and you're kind of in, you're in this, you're in this position, the stairs in front of you. And then you just work your way down the steps until you're closer to the ground.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we've progressed, we're towards the ground. And we can start on your knees, right? You can start in a full arm plank. You can be in a forearm plank, right? But essentially, no matter where you are and in a plank, what we're looking for is the same thing. We're looking for, can we start by drawing this belly in and creating some stiffness through the middle? Yep. Right? And so you have this nice straight line, you have this here, and this is somewhere where people might have some of that coning, might have some of that doming. And what you're looking for is, even with that, are you able to kind of brace and utilize that TA some? If you were to kind of poke at that coning or doming, is there some softness to it? That softness kind of speaks to the connective tissue isn't so taut by your insides pushing on it, and that's an okay. That's like a proceed with caution. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. You can kind of continue. This is going to be challenging for the muscles and even for that connective tissue.
Okay.
Now, if the pain, right?
Yeah.
Like we mentioned,
like lower back, I could imagine.
Yeah, low back, or even abdominal wall. Sometimes that connective tissue gets really sensitive if it's kind of had a lot of load on it that it's not really great at controlling.
Right.
That would be something to watch out for.
Okay. Awesome. And with this, we're looking at like holding or even like extending out into a full plank. Like that would be how we would continue to challenge.
Yeah, and then you can add movement like planks.
Push up or something like
you
that.
Can come forward, right? Come back. We could even take our legs and we can tap. Right? It's kind of that whole idea of just taking and changing your bases of support.
Awesome.
How many arms and legs are touching the ground, really. Even here, right? So we can come here and we can start to tap our shoulders, right? Without a big weight shift. So endless really examples of what we can do in plank. Awesome. We can move, so we can move from a full arm plank, and we can move ourselves down.
Or even down to knees, I guess, if we're starting.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Absolutely. So there's a lot that we can do, and it all has the same basic starting point.
Awesome.
Can I brace here? You can play around with your breath too.
Awesome.
In plank. You're just holding plank. Mm-hmm. Maybe you breathe easily in and out. If you're doing a plank where maybe you're shoulder tapping, maybe that's where we exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, for example.
Awesome. Okay. How about our crunches? If we're sort of a variation on a sit-up, what is something that's always been a myth, like, or one that I also thought was true, like don't do, but now we're learning, like, it's just something that goes on our third end challenge once we got connect and control.
So you might just come into like an upright crunch type of thing. Okay. And same deal.
We've got a visitor helping to show us.
Hi.
Okay.
He wants to hang out.
He's gonna be Team Grizzly supporting us here in our crunch. So if I'm here,
so you might start in an upright position as if you had just finished like a full sit-up. Okay. And always kind of start that same thing. Start that brace, see if you can generate your stiffness here, and then maybe you just move your foot out and in.
And the thing we're looking for is to be able to hold that taut, nice and firm.
And we can use the same breath. Maybe
and we're exhaling extension, inhaling release, and breathing it in.
And here you can play with how upright are you, and as for more challenge, you might just play with where your torso is, right? A lot of times I'll give my clients what I call like a declining sit-up. Okay. So we're starting at the top, or an eccentric sit-up. We're starting at the top, and then we're exhaling, and then we inhale up. So it kind of allows you...
we're going just this way.
Yeah. So it allows you to go as far as you feel like you can control through the midline. You know? And so initially for some people, that might be a short distance, you know? But we're just going to work that. And then maybe as you get stronger, we go through more range of motion.
Nice. Okay. We're looking for that. And you were showing me something cool with ours. How do we do that?
Yeah, so nice move. Again, can add bands.
A fancy move.
Okay. So you'll just wrap it around your feet, start on the top. Yep. And loop it around. Okay. All right, and now we've got here. Okay. And we can do kind of the same thing as far as a decline sit-up goes. Now we just have the band, right? So we're declining, and then as you come up, the band actually helps you a little bit.
Yeah, so that would be an ease, like a step before we're going just solo. Okay. So the band might be an option.
And then return. Yeah.
Good. Yep, to give us extra support there.
Exactly.
Nice.
Exactly. And then one thing we didn't do too much, so we've been working like a lot, that TA, little bit of rectus we just talked about, but the obliques too. Okay. Like in this challenge phase, we're gonna kind of move away from only isolated transverse abdominis and isolated pelvic floor, and we're gonna start to strengthen really everything.
Nice.
So that would include the obliques. Okay. And so, do you have yours?
Yep.
So one thing is what's called a Russian twist. So we start here, and then we exhale, twist, inhale back, exhale opposite, inhale back. Right? So we get obliques. We are crossing midline, which is really important sometimes in healing up. That diastasis is doing some activities that pull through the midline. And then with this, right, you can always increase your weight.
We even do it without weight, I would imagine.
Can do it without weight.
We could start without our weight if we needed to.
Sometimes I'll coach initially, maybe you take your outer hand, right? And that's kind of where you start. As you get back, as you kind of have more control, now maybe we touch both hands down, you know? See just a little bit more twist, a little bit more range of motion, right? Still kind of here, but now we're challenging a little bit more. And then you could absolutely start taking away that support.
That's a nice one. These kind of
Nice. Yep. So that, you know, and then again, like I was saying, strengthening kind of everything means strengthening your body through our functional movement patterns. Squatting, lifting, pushing, pulling, twisting.
Right.
All of those things. So, you know, this is where squats start coming in. Hip hinging, pushing, pulling with the bands, or a chest press, a shoulder press. You know, as you move weight and you move it overhead, you know, it's really important. It's a challenge to your core canister to create the stiffness that you need to move that weight. You know, maybe we inhale back, exhale as we push.
This is the movement to do that fun thing of throwing your kids up in the air and looking at them. All these basic movements that we feel called to do, like picking our infants up, putting them down, playing with our kids. Yeah. This is like the core of all of that. Even just on your back, right? Yeah. And this kind of thing, like kids want they want to be here, right? Yes. And even for this, right? They want you to do like the rocket ship thing. Right. You know, so just working on some of that, creating the stiffness through the canister, using different amounts of resistance. Right. All of that is challenge. So it's completely up to what do you love to do? Where do you maybe have some weaknesses? Right. You know, if you had weaker glutes, or if you had weaker arms or shoulders or something like that, that we're going to want to strengthen there too. Yeah. Because it all starts here in the midline. In our connection. Yeah. Nice. That's right. We just really went through that idea that you laid out for us in our initial talk of connecting, controlling, and challenging. And so when we're building a home Diastasis Recti practice, those are our core principles. Yes. If we can't connect, we don't move on. Right. Once we've got the connection, then we can work on controlling it. And as we feel more comfortable with control, then we're adding more load to challenge it. And that's sort of the core of it all, of being able to build an at-home Diastasis Recti practice. And then it's like integrated and woven into your life. That's like picking up baby and all of these things. You had trained your brain, you've retrained your brain. Say, hey, remember before I do the lift, the push, the pull, I need that stiffness here. So these guys are going to turn on just that second before I go to do it. Yeah, and that's kind of the whole idea. To not have to think about it for the rest of your life. Awesome. This is so good. And even I would imagine our connection comes afterwards. Like I can sort of feel where I've worked today and our work together. Exactly. And so tomorrow, where do I feel it? Right. Like and then also where do I not feel it? Because that might be where I need to also work tomorrow when we're working. And I would say in the connection piece too, if you're really having trouble saying like, or in the control piece maybe it's like, I can't really get this, use your hands, you know, because sometimes it really helps our brain if we kind of push into the area that we're looking for it to pay attention to. Maybe we tap it. Yeah. Right? But those type of things, just pressure, some tapping, really helps our brain be like, oh, okay, oh, that's the spot. Yeah. And so with that dedicated time, couple little strategies, you know, whether it's imagery, just the breath, the tapping, or the touching, it will all come together. That's awesome. Yeah, and really this is so much not just like a physical strategy of Diastasis Recti, but it's a whole life strategy, right? It's also, you know, when we're hearing Michelle talk about training your brain, this is a mental health strategy too. Like our core is the foundation of how we move through life and have control. Absolutely. And empowerment even as women. Yeah. So when we're thinking about tapping into that core, this is like a mind, body, spirit practice really. Yeah, it really is. It really is. And again, sometimes the hardest part is taking the time to feel your body. Exactly. You know, giving yourself permission, I think, to only be feeling your body. Exactly. Yeah. And knowing that that's the foundation of all of this. Yeah. Awesome. Anything else we haven't covered? Or we feel pretty good?
I think that was pretty good.
Yeah.
But just know, again, this is by all means not an all-exhaustive list, you know, just some of my favorites, what I like to work with clients. But there's just, like you said, this is the center of everything. So we can train it, we can retrain it in all different kinds of ways. There's really not a always this and never that situation.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really excited to hear in the comments what all of you think of this practice and also what you're doing at home. Like if you have a sequence that you've been working on or building and how long you've been doing it, I would love if you would feel comfortable sharing that in the comments, because one thing that's come from this original Diastasis Recti video is a really wonderful and rich global network of women who are working to empower themselves to heal that Diastasis Recti. So if something works for you or you have an idea, please drop it in the comments, because somebody else reading later might really benefit from that. And I would just love to hear that. And if you have questions, concerns, as always, please drop those in the comments. But awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, again, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and you can, Michelle's info will be in the sort of bio here on this video. And if you found this video helpful, please make sure to like and subscribe to this page and check out our Diastasis Recti playlist. Thank you and have a great day.
Thanks.